All right, today we are diving into one of the most important and, let's be honest, one of the most intimidating documents in all of cybersecurity, NIST 800-53. Think of it as the master blueprint for digital security. And by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why it's such a big deal.
I mean, just think about that for a second. It sounds completely impossible, right? You've got these three systems with wildly different jobs, different tech, and totally different threat levels. A public website just needs to stay up and running, but a fighter jet, its systems demand absolute bulletproof integrity. So how do you even begin to create one single standard that works for all of them?
Well, the answer is this document right here. See, NIST 853 isn't some rigid, one-size-fits-all checklist. Not at all. It's this massive, incredibly flexible catalog of security and privacy controls. We're talking over 1,000 of them. And the whole idea is that you can pick and choose and tailor them to protect literally any kind of system you can imagine.
So, let's start by digging into what this blueprint is actually all about.
Okay, so officially, it's the mandatory rulebook for all U.S. federal government systems. It's required by a law called FISMA, but its real influence, its real power, goes way, way beyond that. Because it's so comprehensive, organizations that run our critical infrastructure, the power grid, the banks, they all look to it as the gold standard for security. Now, the version everyone's using today, Revision 5, was a huge leap forward. It brought in some absolute game-changing upgrades to deal with the kind of threats we're facing right now. The first huge upgrade was making privacy a central focus. For a long time, privacy was kind of treated as an afterthought, something you bolt on at the end. Not anymore. Revision 5 introduced a whole new family of controls just for protecting personally identifiable information, or PII. So now, privacy is baked right into the framework from the start. It's not separate from security, it is security. Second, they got really serious about the supply chain. And this is so important because, think about it. Almost all software today is built using countless pieces from third-party vendors and open-source projects. The risk isn't just in your own code anymore. So this new SR family of controls gives everyone a playbook for managing those risks that come from the outside. Now this slide, this is a really subtle but incredibly important philosophical shift. The old way of writing controls was very prescriptive. It would say, the system shall do this. But the new way, it's all about the outcome. It focuses on what goal needs to be achieved, and it doesn't really care who or what achieves it. This makes the whole framework way more flexible for modern tech, like the cloud or IoT devices, where security is a shared job. The only thing that matters is, did you get the security result? Okay, so you've got this giant catalog with over 1,000 controls. Where on earth do you even start? Well, the very first step for anyone is to figure out the security category of their system.
And it all comes down to potential impact. You look at three things: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the classic CIA triad. If your public website gets breached, the impact is probably low, annoying but limited damage. If a financial system gets hacked, that's a moderate impact. We're talking serious consequences. But if a critical military system fails, that's high impact. That's catastrophic. Your system's overall level is whatever the highest rating is for any one of those three.
And this chart just shows you the real-world consequence of that impact level. A low-impact system, you're looking at about 150 controls. But look at that jump to moderate. The number of controls almost doubles. This isn't just a small step up. People in the industry call this the moderate leap for a reason. It's a whole different ballgame. And this quote right here just nails it. The move to moderate isn't just about buying more security gadgets or adding more firewalls. It's a fundamental change in how the entire organization thinks about and manages risk. So, what does that shift actually require? Well, for one, it demands real governance and serious buy-in from the top. You have to start implementing these complex assurance controls. Take separation of duties. That's not a piece of software you can just install. It's an organizational process you have to build to make sure no single person has too much power. This stuff requires a major investment in what's called GRC, governance, risk, and compliance, which is really just the formal processes you use to run your security program. So, you found your impact level, and you know which controls you're aiming for. How do you actually put it all together and make it happen? That is where the risk management framework comes into play. The RMF is basically the lifecycle for your security program. We've broken it down into 4 key phases here. First, you categorize your system, just like we talked about. Next, you select the right controls from that giant 853 catalog and you implement them.
Then, you assess everything to make sure it's working right, which leads to an official go-ahead to operate. And finally, and this is so critical, you monitor those controls all the time. It's a living, breathing cycle, not a one-and-done checklist.
But here's the thing. This framework is no longer just a rule book for government agencies. Its impact and its DNA are now spread all across the entire digital world.
For example, if you're a big cloud provider like AWS, Google, or Microsoft, and you want to sell your services to the U.S. government, you have to get through a program called FedRAMP. And what do you think FedRAMP security requirements are built on? You guessed it, NIST 853. It is literally the gatekeeper to the entire federal cloud market.
It's also the backbone of something called CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. This is now a mandatory requirement for any company that does business with the Department of Defense. To protect sensitive information, the entire defense supply chain, we're talking hundreds of thousands of companies, has to prove they're using controls that come straight from NIST 853. And what's really amazing is that this framework isn't just sitting still, it's already adapting to what's next. Right now, NIST is working on special overlays that customize these controls for the totally unique risks we're seeing with artificial intelligence. They're tailoring these safeguards for things like generative AI and large language models, which just proves how flexible and forward-looking this blueprint really is. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, NIST 853 gives us this incredibly powerful and detailed blueprint for security. It gives us the structure, the process, all the specific safeguards, but it also leaves us with one huge, lingering question. In a world where the technology and the threats are changing every single day, can the people building and defending these systems ever truly keep up with the blueprint? That right there is the central challenge of modern cybersecurity.